The night on Ethan's farm was supposed to be quiet, calm, and ordinary. The wind moved softly through the dry fields, and the old wooden barn made its usual creaking sounds. Ethan had finished a long day of work, tucked his 2 children into bed, and sat down with a cup of tea when he heard something strange, a dull thump. Then the soft scrape of something moving. He paused, listening again. Another sound, this time sharper, almost like someone breathing too fast. Ethan stood up slowly. The barn was 20 meters away, and no one should be inside at this hour. His animals were asleep. His dog wasn't barking. And still, the sound came again, shaky and scared. He grabbed his lantern and stepped out into the cold night. The grass was wet under his boots. The moonlight was thin, barely bright enough to see the path. As he walked toward the barn, the strange feeling in his chest grew heavier. Something was wrong. When he reached the barn doors, he placed one hand on the rough wood and pushed it open carefully. The lantern light spread softly across the empty space. At least, he thought it was empty. Then he heard it, tiny, frightened breathing coming from the corner behind the hay bales. Ethan's heart jumped. "Who's there?" he whispered. No answer. Only trembling breaths. He stepped closer. His lantern light fell across the corner, and he froze. A small figure was hiding behind the hay. Not human. Not like anything he had ever seen. A young alien girl, thin, shaking, her skin a pale blue color, her large eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She looked no older than 10, maybe younger, but what struck Ethan the most was how terrified she looked. Not dangerous, but desperate. She tried to move backward, but her arms were weak, and she winced in pain. Ethan raised his hands slowly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." Her lips parted, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, don't give me to the soldiers." Ethan felt a cold shock run through him. Soldiers? Why would they be looking for a child? He knelt down carefully. "What's your name?" But the alien girl didn't answer his question. Instead, tears filled her glowing eyes, and her small hands reached out in fear. My mother," she whispered. "My mother is dying outside." The words hit Ethan like a punch. He stared at her, trying to understand. Dying? Outside? Here? "Where is she?" Ethan asked gently. The girl raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the dark forest behind the barn. Ethan's chest tightened. He knew that forest well, deep, cold, and full of dangers at night. If something was dying out there, it wouldn't last long. The girl's voice cracked. "Please, you're the last person who can help us." Ethan hesitated. He had 2 children sleeping inside the house. Taking in an alien was already dangerous. Helping another one, especially an adult, might bring trouble. He could not even imagine. But then he looked at her again. This was not a threat. This was a frightened child. And Ethan knew the look of a child who had already lost too much. He took a deep breath. "Stay here. I'll go find her." "No!" she cried softly, grabbing his sleeve with surprising strength. "She can't see in the dark. She's hurt. She might not breathe for long." Her voice broke completely. "I don't want her to die alone." Ethan felt something twist painfully inside his heart. He remembered the night his own wife passed away, how helpless he had felt. How cold silence had filled the room. How his children had cried because they didn't understand why their mother wouldn't wake up. He could not let another child feel that same pain. "All right," he said finally. "I'll go right now." The girl stared at him, shocked that a human would say yes so quickly. Then she nodded in gratitude, wiping her tears with shaking fingers. Ethan grabbed his thicker coat from the hook by the door and stepped outside again. The air was colder now, and the forest looked darker than before. He lit the lantern fully and followed the direction the girl had pointed. As soon as he walked past the fence, the night became heavier. The forest trees blocked the moonlight, and the wind carried strange smells: burned metal, Ash, something not earthly. He kept walking, his heartbeat loud in his ears. Then he heard it, a faint groan. Not human. Deep, low, filled with pain. Ethan stopped breathing for a moment. He lifted the lantern higher and stepped closer. There, lying between two fallen trees, was a tall alien woman. Her skin was the same pale blue as the little girl's, but darker on the edges, as if fading. She was injured badly. One side of her chest looked crushed, and strange glowing cracks spread across her skin like broken glass. Ethan knelt beside her, her eyes opened slowly, a deep, tired glow. You. Human, she whispered. Her voice was soft but full of sorrow. My daughter. Is she safe? Yes, Ethan said gently. She's in my barn. The mother's eyes softened. A faint breath escaped her. Then she said something that chilled Ethan to the bone. Please. Protect her. They will come. They always come. Before he could ask who they were, a distant sound echoed through the forest engines, rough voices. Metal clicking. Someone big was coming, someone dangerous. Ethan was standing between them and the alien family. The forest felt colder as Ethan knelt beside the injured alien mother. Her breathing was slow and painful, every inhale sounding like it might be her last. The lantern light flickered across her cracked skin, glowing faintly like broken crystal. Ethan had never seen wounds like this before, and the fear in her dim eyes told him she didn't have much time. You're safe now, Ethan whispered, unsure of whether she even understood him. Your daughter is waiting for you. A tiny smile appeared on her lips, weak but filled with relief. Thank you. Human. Her voice was fading fast. Ethan looked around nervously. The forest was quiet again, but not peaceful quiet in a tense, dangerous way, like something was holding its breath. He remembered the distant engines he had heard. Whoever was searching for this woman and her child was still out there, maybe coming closer every second. He tried to lift her gently, but she cried out in sudden pain. Her body was too damaged. I'm sorry, Ethan whispered, but I need to move you. You won't survive out here. Her hand rose slowly, landing on his wrist. Even weak, her touch carried warmth strange and gentle. My daughter. She breathed. Promise. Protect her. I promise, Ethan said without thinking. The words felt heavy, like a vow he wouldn't be able to escape. A faint glow pulsed across her cracked skin, almost like she was reacting to his promise. Then the glow faded again, leaving her even weaker. Ethan took a deep breath and lifted her carefully into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost too light, as if her energy had drained out of her body. As he began walking back toward the farm, he kept listening for danger. Every second mattered. Halfway there, he heard something again. Voices. Human voices. He stopped behind a tree, holding his breath. The voices were rough, aggressive, echoing through the forest. Scan the area. She should be close. If we find the girl, the mother won't last long. Ethan's blood ran cold. They weren't rescuers. They were hunters. And they were hunting a mother and her child. Ethan hurried back, moving as silently as he could. The alien mother groaned softly in his arms, and Ethan pressed a hand near her shoulder. Please. Just hold on, he whispered. When he finally reached his barn, the little alien girl rushed out the moment she saw him. Mother. She cried, running straight toward them. Ethan set the woman down gently on a stack of hay. The girl placed her hands on her mother's cheeks, whispering something in her language, a soft musical sound full of fear and love. The mother opened her eyes slightly. My little star. You are safe. But her voice was fading, slipping like sand through fingers. Ethan looked at the girl. What does she need? Can I help? The girl shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. She needs energy from our ship. But the ship is broken. It crashed in the woods. Ethan realized the thin smell of burnt metal he noticed earlier must have come from the wreck. "Where is the ship exactly?" he asked. The girl pointed deeper into the forest, toward a ravine Ethan had always warned his kids to avoid. "Down there." We ran before it exploded. Before Ethan could respond, the mother's breathing changed. It became shallow, weaker, every inhale sounding like it might stop completely. "Mother?" The girl whispered in panic. "Mother, please wake up." The mother opened her eyes one last time. They glowed dimly, full of sorrow and love. She reached toward her daughter, fingers trembling. "My star." "Listen," she whispered. "If I do not wake, you must stay. With the human, he is kind. He will protect you." The girl shook her head violently. "No, you will live. I won't let you go." But the mother gave a weak, sad smile. "You are strong. Stronger than you know." Her hand fell slowly to the hay. Her breathing almost stopped. "No." The girl cried, shaking her mother gently. "Wake up, wake up." Ethan placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "She's still alive, but she needs help quickly. We can save her if we reach your ship." The girl looked up at him with desperate eyes full of tears. "You will help us again?" Ethan nodded without hesitation. "I promised her, and I don't break promises." Before the girl could answer, faint lights flickered outside the barn, flashlights moving across Ethan's field. The hunters had reached the farm. Ethan's heart pounded. He grabbed the barn door and closed it quietly, lowering the lantern flame. "We have to move," Ethan whispered. "Right now." "But my mother, we carry her," Ethan said. "Or she won't make it." The girl wiped her tears and nodded bravely. Together, they lifted the fragile alien mother. Outside, the footsteps grew louder. The hunters were spreading out, searching every building. Ethan led the alien girl toward the back of the barn, toward the dark path into the woods, and as they slipped into the shadows, he heard a man's voice behind the barn. "Check everything. The aliens must be here." Ethan tightened his grip on the mother's arm. This was no longer just rescue. It was a race against death. Asterisk. Ethan moved through the back of the barn with the alien girl beside him and her mother lying weakly in his arms. The night felt colder, heavier, as if the darkness itself was warning them to hurry. Behind them, the hunters' flashlights scanned the farmyard, beams cutting across the walls of the house and sliding toward the barn. "We must be quiet," Ethan whispered. The girl nodded, wiping her tears with trembling hands. They slipped into the tall grass behind the barn. Ethan knew every inch of his land, every hiding spot, and every shadow. But tonight, his own home felt like enemy territory. Every sound seemed louder. Every step felt dangerous. The mother groaned softly, her cracked breathing barely above a whisper. The little girl flinched and grabbed her mother's hand. "She is getting colder," the girl whispered. "We need the ship. Only the ship's energy can help her." "I know," Ethan said. "We're going." But reaching the wrecked ship meant going deeper into the forest, closer to where the hunters were also searching. They crouched behind a fallen fence as two hunters walked past. Their heavy boots crushed the dry leaves, and one of them carried a scanning device that beeped softly. The other held a strange weapon with glowing edges, something not from Earth. "Signal is strong here," the taller hunter said. "They must be close." Ethan's heart hammered. If the scanner detected the mother's energy, they'd be discovered instantly. He whispered to the girl, "Stay low. Hold your mother tight." They waited, barely breathing, as the hunters stopped only a few meters away. One of the men pointed toward Ethan's house. "Should we check inside? Maybe the human farmer saw something. Maybe he's hiding them," the other replied. Ethan felt the girl grip his shirt in fear. After a long moment, the hunters walked away toward the house. Ethan breathed again, but only carefully. They didn't have much time. He lifted the alien mother again and moved quickly, using trees as cover. They slipped into the forest, branches brushing their clothes as they made their way toward the ravine. The deeper they went, the darker the forest became. The moonlight disappeared behind thick branches. The air felt heavy and strange, almost humming with leftover energy from the crashed ship. After several minutes, the girl pointed ahead. There, down the slope. Ethan stepped forward. Through the darkness, he finally saw it, the crash site. A broken alien ship lay halfway down the ravine, metal twisted, lights flickering weakly. The ground around it was scorched black, and a faint smell of burned energy filled the air. Strange symbols glowed on the side of the ship, fading in and out like a dying heartbeat. Ethan lowered the alien mother near a fallen log. The girl knelt beside her, brushing her hair gently. "Mother, we are here now. Please stay awake." But the woman didn't respond. Her breathing was thin and fragile, almost gone. Ethan turned to the ship. "We need to get inside. Can you open it?" The girl nodded shakily and walked toward the shattered doorway. She placed her hand on a glowing panel. For a moment nothing happened, then the ship responded with a soft pulse of light. The door slid open halfway, sparks falling from its edges. Inside, the ship was worse dark, broken, and filled with smashed devices. But faint blue light still glowed under the floor panels. The girl rushed to a console and touched a cracked crystal embedded in the surface. "This is the core," she said. "If we can wake it, it will help her." Ethan studied the console. "Tell me what to do." But before she could answer, the sound of snapping branches came from behind them. Ethan grabbed the girl's arm. "Hide!" They ducked behind the ship's hull just as flashlight beams cut across the ravine. Hunters, at least 5 of them. Their boots thudded heavily as they spread out along the cliff edge and began climbing. "Down!" A man's voice echoed through the trees. "The ship is here. Keep your eyes open. The mother is close." Ethan felt his stomach drop. They were trapped in a low ravine. If the hunters reached the bottom before they powered the core, they wouldn't escape. The girl looked at Ethan with terrified eyes. "If they take her, they will use her powers. They want her energy. They want to use it for war." Ethan clenched his jaw. He had lost his wife to a senseless conflict. He would not let another innocent suffer because of human greed. "Show me how to start the core," he said firmly. The girl nodded and pointed to the cracked crystal. "It needs a conductor. Something metal to bridge the broken line." Ethan quickly searched the wreckage and grabbed a bent metal plate. "Will this work?" "Yes, hurry." They worked together, hands shaking, as the hunters came closer. Ethan held the plate steady while the girl pressed her palm to the edge of the crystal. A soft blue glow spread across the surface, brighter and brighter. A loud hum filled the ship. The core was waking. Suddenly, a hunter shouted, "I see movement. Down there." Ethan felt a jolt of fear but didn't stop. The core flared with bright light, spreading across the ship like living energy. "It's working!" The girl cried, but the hunters were climbing faster now. Ethan stood in front of the girl, ready to protect her with only his body if needed. The core glowed brighter, sending a wave of blue light across the ravine. The alien mother's eyes flickered open for a second. The hunters reached the bottom, and Ethan realized their fight was only beginning. The moment the ship's core awakened, the ravine filled with a deep humming sound like a heartbeat returning after long silence. Blue light spread across the broken metal, traveling along every crack and shattered panel. The air warmed, and tiny particles floated upward, glowing softly like fireflies made of starlight. The alien mother's breathing changed. It became steadier, deeper. Not strong, but not dying anymore. The little girl touched her mother's cheek, tears in her eyes. "She can survive," she whispered. "The core is giving her life." But Ethan wasn't. Looking at the mother, he was looking beyond the wreckage. Because shadows moved at the top of the ravine. Hunters. Many of them. Flashlights flickered on the rocks as they climbed on the slope like trained predators. Weapons glowed in their hands. Their boots crushed the dirt. Their voices carried cool confidence. "There they are," one shouted. "Do not let the mother escape this time," another growled. The girl grabbed Ethan's arm, shaking. "Please, don't let them take her." Ethan looked at the mother, then at the terrified child, and something inside him hardened. "No one is taking her," he said simply. "Not while I'm alive." A bright beam shot past them, hitting the ground with a burst of blue sparks. Soil exploded upward. "They're firing." Ethan shouted, "Run!" The girl held the glowing core against her mother's chest, and Ethan lifted the wounded woman in his arms again. She was lighter now, almost weightless, but the warmth from the core pulsed through her body like a tiny heartbeat of its own. Ethan climbed the ravine wall, boots slipping on loose stones. The girl pushed from behind, helping him steady the mother's head. Another beam struck a rock near Ethan's shoulder, sending shards flying. "Faster!" Ethan gasped. They reached the top just as the first hunters reached the ship's hull. The leader snarled, "Don't let them leave with the core." Ethan ran into the forest without looking back. The trees swallowed them quickly, but the sound of the hunters kept following, shouting. Boots cracking branches, weapons humming with energy. The forest was darker than before. The moonlight barely slipped through the branches. The cold air cut against Ethan's face, and the mother's soft breaths warmed his arm only slightly. The girl ran beside him, her bare feet light and quiet. But her fear was loud. "They will track us," she whispered. "They have sensors that follow the core's energy." "Then we hide the core," Ethan said. "No. Without the core, she will die again." Ethan said nothing. He only ran harder. A beam sliced through the air behind them, striking a tree and carving it open with a sizzling crack. The tree fell across their path with a heavy crash. Birds scattered upward in panic. "They're getting closer," Ethan said. They swerved around the fallen trunk and reached a narrow animal trail that led deeper into the woods. Ethan knew these trails from years of hunting and exploring. If he could just reach the old riverbed, they could lose the hunters in the rocks. But the mother suddenly coughed loud, sharp, weak. The sound echoed through the forest. The hunters heard it. "There! This way!" A voice shouted. Ethan's heart dropped. "Keep moving. Don't stop." The girl placed the core gently against her mother's chest again. A faint glow spread across the woman's cracked skin. Her eyes fluttered halfway open. "Daughter," she whispered. The girl choked on her tears. "Mother, please stay with me. We're almost safe." Ethan felt the woman's hand twitch weakly against his coat like a plea or a warning. Branches whipped against Ethan's arms as he rushed through the forest. The sound of running feet behind them grew louder. The hunters were gaining. Then a bright idea flashed in Ethan's mind. "The pond," he said. The girl blinked. "What pond?" "There's an old water pond ahead. If we move through the water, their scanners will lose our track." The girl nodded, hope flickering in her eyes. They broke through the last layer of bushes and reached the pond, a still, dark pool surrounded by tall reeds. The water was cold, but they didn't hesitate. Ethan stepped in carefully, lowering the mother until only her face stayed above the water. The girl held the core above her head, keeping it dry while they slowly moved across. Behind them, the hunters burst through the trees. "Spread out. They're close." The hunters scanned the ground, confused. The footprints ended at the water's edge. Ethan kept the girl close, both of them holding their breath as the hunters scanned the pond with their strange devices. One of the men walked so close his boots nearly touched the surface. "Nothing here," another man said. "They must have gone east," the leader replied. "Move." One by one, the hunters disappeared into another part of the forest. Ethan exhaled shakily. The girl looked at him with wide, shaking eyes. "You saved us again." Ethan looked at the exhausted mother, then at the girl. "Not yet. We still have to reach my cabin. She needs warmth. She needs rest." They stepped out of the pond, dripping and shivering, but alive. The cabin was still far. The hunters were still searching, but for the first time that night, they had hope. The forest was silent again as Ethan, the alien girl, and her weak mother pushed deeper into the dark woods. Their clothes were wet from the pond, their breaths visible in the cold air. The girl held the glowing core tightly, and Ethan carried the mother as carefully as he could, feeling her faint heartbeat thumping against his arm. "We're close," the girl whispered. "The ship, the real heart of it, is deeper in the ravine. What we saw before was only a broken part." Ethan frowned. "There's more of it?" She nodded. "Our ship broke in two when we crashed. The main chamber fell farther." Ethan didn't like the idea of going even deeper into the forest, but he knew the mother's life was slipping again. The brief strength from the core was fading. The glow along her skin dimmed like dying embers. "She can't survive long without the ship," the girl said softly. "Then we reach it," Ethan replied. "No matter what." They continued moving, stepping over fallen branches and through thick reeds until the ground suddenly sloped downward. The girl climbed ahead, guiding Ethan, and when she parted a large curtain of vines, Ethan stopped in shock. A second ravine, much deeper than the first, opened before them, and at the bottom lay the other half of the alien ship. This part was massive, more intact, glowing faintly with dying blue lights. Strange runes covered the metal surface, shifting like liquid symbols. Several panels were shattered, exposing flickering tubes and humming coils. The ravine walls sparkled faintly with residue energy. It looked ancient and futuristic at the same time, a machine from a world far more advanced than his own. Ethan whispered, "Good Lord." The girl's eyes softened. "This ship carried my people for many years. It was our home." Carefully, they descended the rocky slope until their feet touched the soft earth near the broken hull. Ethan laid the mother gently on the ground. Her eyes fluttered open, barely conscious. "We're here, Mother," the girl whispered, holding her hand. "We brought the core." A weak, grateful smile appeared on the alien woman's lips. Ethan turned to the girl. "What do we do now?" She pointed to a large circular door built into the ship's side, cracked open from the crash. "Inside, there's a memory chamber. The core must be placed there. It will activate the ship's healing system. Will it save her?" Ethan asked. Tears touched the girl's eyes. "If the system still works." "Yes," Ethan nodded. "Then let's try." They stepped toward the doorway, pushing the broken metal aside. Inside, the ship smelled like burned circuits and old dust. Blue crystal shards lay on the ground like shattered glass, glowing weakly. The girl knelt and picked one up. "This is a memory crystal," she said. "It stores our history, our knowledge." Ethan looked around the chamber. Strange holograms flickered across the walls, images of planets, stars, battles fought long ago. One projection showed a large fleet firing on a smaller vessel. Then static. "Your people were attacked?" Ethan asked. The girl nodded slowly. "Hunters. Not humans. Not soldiers. Mercenaries sent by powerful worlds who want our ability." "What ability?" She hesitated, then pointed at her mother. "She can heal. Not small wounds. She can heal broken systems, dying energy, injured minds. Her power is rare, and dangerous if used by greedy people." Ethan swallowed hard. No wonder the hunters wanted her alive. The girl placed the glowing core in a circular cradle in the center of the chamber. Instantly, the walls lit up with bright blue light. The symbols began to move faster, spinning around the room. A soft hum filled the ship, gentle at first. Then growing strong, the alien mother gasped from outside the doorway. Her body reacting. She's responding, the girl whispered. The ship is waking. It feels her. But the hum suddenly shifted, turning sharper. Ethan stepped back. Is that supposed to happen? The girl touched the console. Her eyes widened. The ship. It detected danger. It senses hunters nearby. It's preparing a defensive scan. Ethan felt his stomach sink. How many hunters? The girl closed her eyes, listening to the ship's data. When she opened them again, her face turned pale. Many. They're surrounding the ravine. Before Ethan could react, a voice shouted from above. Human! Step away from the ship. Ethan froze. He knew that voice. It was the hunter leader from earlier. He looked upward and saw multiple silhouettes lining the top of the ravine. Weapons glowing blue. They had found them again. The girl grabbed Ethan's sleeve. We must protect the core. The ship will shut down if they hit it. Ethan pulled the girl behind a panel. Stay low. Don't move. The alien mother, though weak, reached out and touched Ethan's arm. Her voice was faint, but her words were clear. Help. My daughter. She carries the future. A beam shot down from the cliff, exploding against the metal. Ethan grabbed a fallen metal rod, his only defense. Hunters slid down the rocks, shouting orders. Firing into the ship. Ethan knew one thing. If they took the girl or the mother, everything would be lost. He stood in front of the doorway, just a farmer with no weapon facing trained killers with alien tech. But he didn't back down. Not anymore. The ravine blazed with blue light as the alien ship awakened fully, responding to the energy core and the presence of the mother lying near its entrance. The humming sound turned deeper, richer, spreading through the ground like a pulse from another world. Ethan felt it in his bones. The ship was alive in its own way, but so were the hunters. They slid down the ravine walls fast, their boots kicking loose stones. Their glowing weapons lit the dark like electric fire. Every man moved with purpose, surrounding the ship from every direction. Secure the mother first. The leader shouted, Shoot the human if he gets in the way. Ethan stood between the hunters and the doorway of the ship, gripping only a bent metal rod he found earlier. It wasn't a real weapon. It was barely more than scrap, but he held it like his life depended on it, because it did. Behind him, the little alien girl knelt beside her mother, pressing the glowing core against the woman's chest. The mother's breathing strengthened slightly, her pale skin brightening with the faint blue shimmer of healing energy. Mother, stay with me, the girl whispered, voice cracking. Please stay. Ethan didn't turn around. He didn't dare. Every piece of his attention stayed fixed on the hunters advancing toward him. Their eyes burned with greed, not hatred, greed for the powers the mother carried. The leader pointed his weapon. Move, human. This is your final warning. Ethan lifted the metal rod, hands steady. Not moving. You don't understand, the leader sneered. This alien woman can save millions if she's under the right control. You mean your control, Ethan replied. The hunter's smirk vanished. Enough. Take him. Two hunters rushed forward. Ethan swung the rod hard, surprising them with the speed of a man who had worked a farm his whole life. The first hunter stumbled back. The second tried grabbing Ethan's arm, but Ethan twisted, slamming the rod against the man's leg. A bright blue shot fired, missing Ethan by inches and exploding against the ship's door. The girl screamed, covering her mother's body. Stop shooting. The leader barked. We need the ship intact. Ethan's chest heaved, but he didn't step back. His arms burned from effort, but he raised the rod again like a shield. Another hunter approached cautiously. Just give up. You're no soldier. No, Ethan said. I'm a father. That gave the hunter only a heartbeat of hesitation, but it was enough. The ship suddenly responded. Blue energy surged up the walls, forming a shimmering barrier around the memory chamber. Strange symbols lit up, floating into the air like glowing dust. The ground vibrated beneath them. The ship was protecting its wounded passenger and her daughter. A wave of energy exploded outward. Not strong enough to harm, but powerful enough to send hunters stumbling backward, shielding their faces. What was that? One shouted. Ethan used the moment to slam his shoulder into another attacker, knocking him off balance. The metal rod flew from Ethan's hand, landing several feet away. Now he was unarmed. A hunter raised his glowing weapon again. The girl cried out, "Ethan!" Ethan turned just in time to see the blast coming, but the alien mother, half-conscious, barely alive, lifted her hand. A thin shield of blue energy formed in front of Ethan, weak, trembling, but enough to deflect the shot. The blast ricocheted into the ravine wall with a boom. The mother collapsed again. "Mother!" The girl screamed. Ethan rushed back toward her, but the hunters recovered quickly. They fired again, not at Ethan this time, but at the ship. The blasts cracked the outer plates, causing sparks and flashes of energy. The girl's eyes widened with horror. They want to break the ship. If the core disconnects, she will die again. Ethan looked around desperately. They were surrounded. He was unarmed. The mother was fading. The girl was too young and too fragile. But the land itself, the ship, the energy, all of it reacted to emotion, to intention, to protection. Ethan looked at the glowing core in the girl's hands, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. Put the core in the center of the chamber. Ethan shouted, "But the hunters, I'll hold them," Ethan said. "Go." The girl hesitated, tears rising again, but she nodded. "Don't die, Ethan." He didn't reply. He simply turned around and stood tall. As the girl carried the core into the ship's central chamber, blue light followed her steps. The mother's body shimmered with each pulse of energy. "Stop the girl," the leader yelled. "If she activates the full system, we lose everything." 4 hunters rushed forward. Ethan charged. He had no weapon, no armor, no training, but he had something stronger. Determination born from love, from loss, from the promise he made to a dying mother. He tackled the first hunter with full force. They rolled across the dirt. The second hunter swung his weapon down, but Ethan blocked it with his forearm, gritting his teeth through the pain. Behind Ethan, the girl reached the center of the chamber and placed the core into a tall crystalline column. The entire ship roared to life. Light exploded upward, forming a pillar so bright the hunters shielded their eyes. Shockwaves rippled across the ravine, knocking weapons from their hands. The hunters scrambled. "What's happening?" "The ship is activating." "Retreat! Retreat!" The ravine shook like a living creature awakening from centuries of slumber. Ethan staggered toward the doorway, watching the blue energy wrap around the mother's body like warm light. The girl grabbed Ethan's hand, her voice trembling. "It's working. Ethan, it's working." But as the hunters retreated, the leader stayed back, eyes full of fury. "This isn't over," he snarled. Ethan stepped in front of the girl. "It is today." The ship's light grew brighter, blinding white-blue, and the ravine fell silent. Asterisk. The ravine glowed like a second sunrise as the alien ship released its final wave of energy. Blue light poured over the rocks, through the trees, and across everyone in the clearing, warm, calm, almost peaceful. The hunters scrambled backward, blinded and confused, dropping their weapons in fear. Ethan stood in front of the ship's doorway, his chest heaving, his arms bruised, but his stance strong. He shielded the girl behind him while the ship's light swirled around them like a protective storm. Slowly, the light began to fade. The powerful hum softened into a gentle vibration. The ship's crystals dimmed from bright blue to a quiet, steady glow. The attack was over, but Ethan didn't move until the very last spark of energy faded into the night. Only then did he turn toward the girl. She was holding her mother's hand, no longer cold, no longer fading. The alien mother's eyes opened fully for the first time since their escape began. Her skin glowed softly, the cracks healed by the ship's restored energy. Her breathing was strong, steady, alive. The girl burst into relieved tears. "Mother, you're awake. You're really awake." The mother lifted her hand slowly and touched her daughter's cheek. "My little star, you saved me." "No," the girl whispered, smiling through her tears. "We saved you. Me and Ethan." The mother's gaze shifted to the human standing nearby, dirty, injured, exhausted, but still watching them with quiet concern. "You helped my daughter when she was alone," the mother said, her voice soft but full of meaning. "And you helped me when my own strength failed." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Anyone would have done the same." The mother shook her head. "No, many would fear us. Many would turn away. But you did not, because you know loss. And you know love." Ethan looked down. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. The ship hummed weakly behind them, stabilizing from the powerful activation. The girl stood and hugged Ethan tightly around the waist. "You kept your promise," she said. "You protected us." Ethan gently placed his hand on her head. "It wasn't a promise. It was the right thing to do." Above the ravine, the forest was eerily silent. The hunters who had escaped were nowhere to be seen. Their leader had vanished into the shadows. But their weapons and equipment lay scattered across the rocks, a sign of their defeat. "They will come back," the mother warned softly. "Not tonight, but they will return for us." Ethan nodded. "Then you stay with me and my family. We'll protect each other." The girl's eyes widened. "Your family, will they accept us?" Ethan thought of his children, kind, curious, brave. He smiled gently. "They already accepted you the moment you walked into my barn." The mother looked down at her daughter, then back at Ethan. "Your world is dangerous. Ours is far away. But for now, we have no home except the one you offer." "You're welcome in mine," Ethan said simply. They climbed out of the ravine together, Ethan supporting the mother, the girl carrying the glowing core, the ship humming softly behind them like a distant heartbeat dot as they reached the forest path. The early light of dawn peeked through the trees. Birds began to sing. The long, terrifying night was finally ending. The girl held her mother's hand tightly. "We survived, Mother. Because of him." The mother looked at Ethan with gentle gratitude. "You are more than a rescuer, human. You are a protector." Ethan shook his head. "I'm just a father who didn't want to see another child lose her mom." The mother's eyes softened. "And because of that, my daughter still has me." When they finally reached the farm, Ethan's children rushed out of the house, eyes wide, curious, half afraid, but full of wonder. The little alien girl hid behind Ethan at first, but he gently nudged her forward. "It's all right," he said. "These are my kids." Slowly, the two human children approached her. The girl hesitated, then smiled. "Do you want to see our barn again?" Ethan's son asked quietly. The alien girl nodded shyly, just like that. Fear turned into friendship. The mother watched, tears of relief in her glowing eyes. "You gave her a chance to be a child again," she whispered to Ethan. "I cannot repay that." "You already have," Ethan replied, "by giving my kids a friend and giving my home new life." As the sun rose fully, painting the sky with gold and pink, Ethan stood with the alien mother and her daughter. The night's horrors felt far away now, like a bad memory washed clean by morning light. The ship hummed faintly in the forest, hidden from sight. The hunters were driven back, at least for now. The girl laughed for the first time. Running with Ethan's children across the yard, the alien mother stood beside Ethan, watching them, Your world is dangerous, she said quietly. But it is beautiful. Ethan smiled. Your world gave me something to protect again. For the first time in years, Ethan felt that his home was no longer empty. He had not just saved a girl, he had gained a family he never expected. A new bond formed from fear, hope, courage, and simple human kindness. And in the quiet morning air, the alien mother spoke one final gentle truth. In saving us, you saved yourself too.